place to keep us in chains. By a show of hands, who else is sick and tired of the same 1%? Trying to keep us small, trying to keep us from getting out. Minimizing the struggles they've caused, saying we're not working hard enough.
We really should stop this fighting. Otherwise, we'll miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go.
And welcome, everybody, to Suck It. I am the great and powerful King of Kings, Prince of all that is awesome. Derek, how is everybody tonight on this Tuesday, January 19th of the year that is 2021? Woo! Already 19 days into the year, and it feels like we're falling apart. But hey, it is what it is. I hope that you're on your journey to well-being, because all this infighting and all this finger pointing just needs to stop, and we just need to come together as human beings and come together as Americans and just hold hands and sing Kumbaya fucking ya. Please, can we do that? But if not, whatever. Punch each other in the face. I don't care. But anyway, on to bigger and better things. Tonight, I have a great guest with me tonight who is a musician. He's a photographer. He's a bike and car guy. He's a little bit of everything. This guy is like a jack of all trades. A disciple of everything, a master of nothing kind of thing. But hey, the more you know, the better off you are, right? But let's have some fun. Let's have some talking. Let's get down to the nit and gritty and have a little bit of fun and talk about everything in between. So without any further ado, please welcome to the show, Mr. Bryon Tapp. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, Derek. Good to be here.
Hey, I appreciate it. Anything I can do to take my mind and, everything off of the crappiness that is the day,
Yeah. Sometimes we just need a distraction.
We do. We freaking do. And
Yeah.
You know what? I'm so glad that I have this show as a distraction, because let me tell you what, if I didn't, I don't know what I would be doing with my life right now.
Yeah, I have to have something like music or art or anything, something to keep my mind occupied. Otherwise, I just go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is, unprecedented times. I mean, unlike anything that we've ever seen in our lifetime, and, even our, the generation before us, I mean, nothing like this has ever occurred since right before, the Roaring 20s in 1918. I mean, then, I don't think it was this bad.
There's always been a division there, but with tech and the speed of information now, it's made the world so much smaller,
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely had an effect on it.
Yeah, without the internet, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Certainly.
Same.
I mean, I've always been into music and, jammed with, friends, but this just makes it possible to reach, worldwide audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. And, the internet is definitely a blessing and a curse. I mean, there's no two ways around it. I mean...
Yeah, and it's still in its infancy, basically.
It really is. I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, the internet's younger than I am. I mean, younger than you are. And,
Wow. A lot of things are younger than me. I'll be 60 years old this year, man. 60.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed, to be honest with you.
I don't feel like it. I mean, I just feel like a big dumb kid.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year, but I feel like I'm 60 going on 70.
Yeah, well, there's days.
And my body is falling apart. I have hip issues. I've got neck issues. I've got shoulder issues. I'm falling apart.
Yeah, I farmed for 22 years, and man, a lot of hard manual labor, and there's days I'm just surprised I can even walk.
Yeah. I wrestled professionally for 15 years, and I
Cool.
was also an MMA fighter, so my body's been beaten up.
Ouch! Yeah, yeah. You've got some scars.
Yeah, I can probably fill an episode a day for probably about 2 years on all the different scars and broken bones and everything else I've been, it's happened in my lifetime. I shouldn't be walking.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. Like, no, I should not be walking. I should be in like a wheelchair.
Yeah.
With a home care nurse. How is it
that I'm still alive? Right?
How is it that I'm still alive? I should have like a home care nurse that wipes my ass every day,
Yeah.
But but instead I get to make jokes and come on here and talk shit. It's fantastic.
Yeah, if you can't make fun of yourself a bit, I just try not to take things too damn seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too, buddy. Me too. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, Bryon Tapp. I live in Austin, Minnesota, which is in the southern part of the state. We're home of the Spam Museum. Yay! Whatever.
Wow.
yeah, that's their claim to fame here. I farmed for 22 years. Farming quit me, and I went back to school and learned computer networking, network infrastructure, and security. Worked in IT for a few years and got out of it and divorced, and then remarried 11 years ago, and a wonderful woman, Bonnie. And let's see, it was in 2016, my 30-year-old son was murdered. And I kind of went into a funk for a while and didn't feel like doing anything. And my son and I always liked music, and we would turn each other on to different bands and stuff. Like he turned me on to Neutral Milk Hotel and the Decemberists. And so I kind of thought, well, I got my guitar and I just started noodling with it. And then the next thing I know, I'm recording it. And then the next thing I know, I'm buying another guitar. And then I'm buying another, guitar pedals. And now if you look around in my studio, there's I think I've got 23 guitars, and I've lost track on how many pedals I've got, but I use them to do the ambient guitar stuff. Mm-hmm. And, I started with Ditch, and Hood and Associates, and the music that I was producing at that point, I thought it was what people wanted me to make, and I wasn't comfortable doing it. So I stopped, and I just said, I want to go back to the guitar looping and the ambient sound that I'm comfortable with, because I know how I want that to sound, and I'm doing it because I like doing it. I'm at the point now where I'll record, a song and mix it and get it done, and I'll listen to it and I'm like, okay, yeah, I like that, and maybe someone else will like that. Mm-hmm. So, if they don't, that's fine. I'll continue to make it whether they do or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, and I cook. My wife hasn't touched a pot or a pan in 11 years. I keep teasing her. I go, well, what are you making for supper tonight? And she's like, oh my God, no. And I do carpentry work. We're currently remodeling our house right now. I live in a 126-year-old house, and I build cafe racer motorcycles, trying to keep myself out of trouble.
So again, like I said, a jack of all trades, a master of none, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I self-taught everything because, when I was farming, I couldn't afford to pay somebody to do the work for me. So I would learn how to do my own, like plumbing and wiring and framing and finish work and you name it. Doing your own auto repairs. Of course, now you can't do that because everything's, computer chip and replace it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, what you just said, definitely pertains to the current state of affairs in kind of a roundabout way. you know, like you just said, at the time when you were farming, you really couldn't afford to pay anybody to teach you these things or, farm out,
Right.
to get those things done. So you made an effort to learn it yourself in order to have that, that trade along with it. So,
Right. And at the same time, I'm developing a skill that I can, continue to use.
exactly. So the way I want to, kind of, tie this into the current state of affairs is because, there's hundreds of thousands of people sitting at home right now, with the highest, unemployment rate we've ever had before in our lives, that are sitting at home saying, woe is me, collecting unemployment, collecting their severance, and not, and being upset, which rightfully so. I mean, don't get me wrong. They have every reason to be upset, but they're not taking any additional steps to maybe learn a craft, maybe learn something new. Look back at their 13-year-old self and say, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
Why didn't I pursue this dream of mine when I was 13? It was stupid then, but is it still stupid now? I mean, come on. I think I can pull that off.
I think you're going to see a lot of people changing career directions because of this.
Mm-hmm.
They've had time for some self-reflection, and are they happy with where they're at? Were they happy before? What can I do to change that? That's kind of the attitude that I always try to maintain.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it too, because I mean that's pretty much what kind of forced me into doing this year. I mean, granted, my show was already up and running, and I was building an audience and stuff like that. But then I lost my job, and I was like, you know what? I've already got this going for me. Might as well make it bigger. What else can I do? What can I learn? How can I make this grow? And I took everything I had and put it into this. And it's worked out for me. And I see a lot of other people doing that, but at the same time, I don't see a lot of people doing that too. It's kind of a 50-50 mix and blend. And it's just like, get out there, appease the child in you. What did you want to do when you were 12?
Yeah, nobody's going to do it for you.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to do it for you. You've got to take the initiative and want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with one of the things that I focus on the show is, mental health and, and the barriers that sometimes we have to face on a daily basis. And, as somebody who suffers from severe mental health issues, I'm a firm believer in the fact that the only person that's ever put a wall in front of you preventing you doing what you can do is you. You're the only one that builds that wall. Well, my boss doesn't want me to do this, or my boss this, my wife this, or I have, this, or no, you're putting up those walls, and we got to fight.
You're the one that determines whether or not you want to proceed. In 2000, I was diagnosed with acute anxiety disorder and depression. And I remember what led up to that is I spent a week in my house because I couldn't go outside. I wanted to, but I couldn't mentally, get myself to take the steps to go outside. And it was terrible. Mm-hmm. I remember my German Shepherd at the time, I was in my kitchen leaning up against the counter, and I was just looking at the floor, and I look up, and there she is looking at me with this look on her face like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I'm like, okay, I gotta do this. So, but yeah, you gotta take the first step to do things. Gotta sound like Jordan Peterson.
But you're not wrong. I mean, like you said, I mean, look at what you did. I mean, out of, a horrible tragedy, and, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, back in 2016. I mean,
yeah,
as a father,
yeah.
I am a firm believer in, we should never bury our kids, or kids are supposed to bury us. And
exactly,
that's a horrible tragedy. But out of that tragedy, you've now built this, to live on your son's dream. I mean, and kind of share that with him in this way, and which I think is beautiful. I mean, it's amazing that you've done so.
Yeah, shortly before his death, I bought him a Fender acoustic guitar, a 6-string, and I have that, of course, and never be able to get rid of that. But yeah, I just kind of thought, his his solution what he probably would have told me is, get off your ass, go get some tequila and some Coke, and and hit it. That was his attitude. So I just kind of, he would want me to do this, and he would enjoy this. So just kind of doing it for him, I guess.
And that there's no other better reason in the world. I mean, yeah, doing it for yourself is 100%, first and foremost. But there's other reasons too, and that's nothing better in the world to be able to honor your son that way. So my hat's off to you.
Thanks.
No problem. Again, you deserve that. Now, the ambient music that you put together, I've always wondered, because I'm a musician as well, but I'm a hardcore metal guy. I love loud things in my ear. And even, when I go to bed at night and I listen to music, I just listen to the acoustic versions of those same songs. But I love that, that type of sound.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered what the motivation is and what inspires you and what the end result is with that type of ambient or quote unquote elevator music, which I hate that term. I hate that term, so I'm not insulting you with that. I'm just using it to for other people to understand. So, what's the motivation behind that? What drives you to make that style of music?
I grew up listening to like Pink Floyd, early Pink Floyd, Robin Trower, yes, a lot of, classic rock. And I was always drawn more towards the kind of orchestral sound. Even the Beatles did a lot of that with cello, and I just always have liked that, and even classical music. I mean, and I like I like all kinds of music, but for me, I enjoy making the multidimensional, the comes at you in waves type of music. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in listening through your catalog on Spotify, which is, by the way, tagged in the description of this video and the podcast. It does have a lot of this, some of it, not all of it though, does have that. I can hear the inspiration of the Zeppelins and the Pink Floyd and the Beatles and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like, if you took the words out and just kind of recreated those sounds and add a little bit more orchestra, symphonic sounds, and that's what you got. And it's really calming. It's for lack of a better word, it really is. And it's nice.
I've been listening to a lot of stoner rock and desert rock lately, instrumental. Mm-hmm. Love it. Oh my God, can't get enough of it. It's always on in my garage where I'm working on bikes or something, it's on 24/7 out there. And I got into that a couple of years ago, and I'm like, yeah, this is amazing.
That, I've never gotten into stoner rock or anything like that, but I mean, everybody loves a good Real Big Fish every now and again, or Grateful Dead or stuff like that. But that was never one of my biggest things. But I can tell, again, listening through your track list, it's there. That's there as well, and I like that about you. It's not the same, type of rhythm. It's not the same type of blend. It's a little bit different every time, and it doesn't fall into one style or one, type of melody. And it's nice. It's nice and different.
And there's been quite an evolution in it as well. Like I said, what I started with, I was using a lot of production apps on my iPad, and more and more app-based than guitar-based. And I really didn't like the direction it was going. It was kind of, it was limiting, and with the guitar I'm the one that's controlling it more than, a setting on an app. So I just enjoy it more, and I think it sounds better.
Oh, it really does. How did you get hooked up with Hood and Associates?
Fluke. I'd made a video with original music that I'd posted on Instagram, and Ditch contacted me and asked me if I wanted to join up, and I said, yeah, sure, this sounds fun. And that was 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Two and a half, 3 years ago. So, yeah, I got in on the ground floor with him. So
yeah, because I mean, a lot of the other artists that they have on there, you know, they have a couple rock artists, but it's mainly, you know, rap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you would, and I was like, this is interesting. You know, when he first sent me the other, you know, last week, I was like, okay, let me see what this is about. And I was like, you know, I like that because, you know, especially with you know, the label that is, you know, Hood and Associates, you know, when you hear that, it's like, oh, you're going to get nothing but rappers. But then you look at their artist list and it's like, oh, wait a second. It's not. It's more than that. And I like that.
Yeah. It's not all, I mean, yeah, I think he's doing a good thing. And God, the guy's got the energy of 10 of me, you know.
Yeah, he is a good cat though. I enjoy working with him. He's gotten me some great people, including yourself. So, you know, I'm not going to complain. And that's another thing that I love about what I do now is, you know, getting to meet and talk to all these different walks of life, you know, especially the ones that go under the radar.
Yeah.
You know, the indie artists and the ones that, you know, quote unquote, make that, like I said, for lack of a better term, elevator music.
Elevator music.
Yeah. But the sounds that you hear, you know, whether you're on, you know, on hold for the government or calling Comcast or whatever, you know, that ambient music, and somebody put their time and effort into that. And I don't think a lot of like, and those, especially like musicians that do scores for movies and stuff like that, they don't get a lot of the recognition they deserve.
Right.
You know,
and that's kind of the direction I'd like to see some of this take is, you know, the ambient background music for independent film, or because when I'm watching a film, I'm paying attention to the way that it's shot, the lighting, the camera angles, but more I'm listening to the soundtrack, the ambient sound behind the dialogue, and I'm like, yeah, that's very similar to what I make.
Yeah, I mean, because like, look at one of the best movies, you know, in the last 40 plus years, with one of the greatest soundtracks and, you know, music catalog behind it, you know, Star Wars. And, you know, everyone remembers, okay, John Williams did all that. Okay,
Yeah.
but you also forget the London Symphony Orchestra was behind that. They're the one who actually played it. Did you forget about them? Oh, no, we just remember John Williams, the composer. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you know, that the London Symphony Orchestra, they're the ones that did the dun 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 dun. You know, they're the ones that did that. And a lot of people forget the people behind the scenes a lot of the times. And I like being able to, you know, bring that to the surface and to the forefront.
Yeah, that's just something that I don't know how I started doing it, but you know, I'd be the guy sitting in the theater at the end while they're rolling credits, looking at all the names and what the jobs are and what they do, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people involved in this, you know.
Yeah. Back about 14 years ago, I was married, and I went through a divorce at the time. But my first ex-wife, her dad was an editor for ABC for a long time, for 30 some years. He worked the booth, you know, for Good Morning America, you know, did the Olympics, even won an Emmy for the Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when I was with her, it was one of those things where she made me sit through the credits of every movie because, again, like we were just talking about, you know, those people get forgotten. And, you know, since her dad was one of those people that got forgotten, she wanted to make sure that she gave them the time of day.
Right.
Which kind of worked out in my favor because after we got divorced and all the Marvel movies started coming out and they put an end credit scene, I was so used to it anyway, might as well sit through them anyway. But again, it's one of those things where people just, they need to get the recognition they deserve. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're a lighting person or the person who wrote the soundtrack behind it all. They're people and they work their asses off just as hard as everybody else.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always kind of grinds me is the fact that corporate radio never really gives a shot anymore to up and comers.
No.
And there's so much really good music out there and so much talent that never gets airtime. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's funny that you bring that up because that's actually the whole idea behind me talking to you and a bunch of other people that I've talked to as well. So, bigger, broader span than that. Not only do the, terrestrial radio, which I think is dying anyway, doesn't showcase the people that need to be showcased, but at the same time, this past year, look at, all the major acts that didn't put anything out, that didn't.
Oh, wow.
That sat back and said, hey, we can't tour, so we're not going to make any new music for you. There was exceptions, but
they just put it on hold though. I mean,
correct.
Instead of using the time to do something productive and maybe go in a different direction. No, they just said,
exactly.
We're not doing it.
But then all of these indie artists, indie bands stepped up and said, hey, wait a second. I still want to put out music.
It's our time to shine.
And it was. And when I noticed that, because when I started noticing it in around October, September, October, to where I was opening up my Spotify, and I was opening up my Amazon Music, and I would see all these different artists that I've never heard of before in the spotlight, in the featured. And I would go back and do some research on them, like an indie band on an indie label. Yeah. And then I was started doing more research, and I found, this PR guy that handles nothing but indie guys. And I reached out to him, and I've just been interviewing just indie artists since then. Yeah. And then Ditch hit me up, and I was like, okay, I'll do you guys as well. Indie. That's what I want to do. And I've been really hitting hard on the indie artists because, again, same thing. They go unnoticed. They get swallowed up by these bigger bands, but those bigger bands aren't there for us right now, guys. The indie artists are.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. I don't know if it's a we're better than you thing that they have, or if it's just we've made it so we can sit back now and I don't know.
I think it's more, I don't know if it's so much them, the band, they might be in some cases, but I also think it's big money corporate, BMG or Sony or, all these different recording companies that say, wait a second, we don't make money off of album sales anymore. So if you don't tour, we don't make money. So why are we putting this out? Now I can extend your contract, make you still owe me this kind of stuff. I can get more merch sales out of you. I can do this for another year, but we're going to make you hold off. So I wonder how much it is of that versus the band saying, hey guys, we're not going to put this out for a while.
I'm sure it's a
combination.
A little of both. Yeah.
And that's a sad fact because, bands that you have just loved for the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, that has always been there for you. But then when the time was at its worst, you see their true colors. And that's really sad.
Yeah. It just, it shows the depth of their character, I guess, or lack thereof.
Yeah. But, again, there's so much other good stuff out there that we need to remember that and give credit where credit is due. If you're looking on Spotify, if you're looking on Amazon or wherever you get your music, and you see something new and different, if it's in the genre that you like, give it a shot. Doesn't matter if it's indie, doesn't matter if it's, whatever. Give them a shot. You never know.
Yeah, give them a listen. And you might might accidentally enjoy it, you know.
Well, something similar happened to me this year that I actually turned out, I actually enjoyed. So, being that there wasn't very many, obviously there wasn't any, live concerts this year. I kind of like everybody else have taken to watching virtual streams or virtual concerts and stuff like that when they're out there. And even though this person isn't an indie artist, it was an artist that I never really followed, never really enjoyed, but because of what they did for the music industry at the time, I was like, okay, they deserve my attention. So the person I'm talking about is Miley Cyrus. Back in September, October, I can't remember when it was, she was part of the Save Our Stages concert, series for charity to, raise money for different, small concert venues that were losing money and on verge of bankruptcy and closing up shop. And I watched her, do her thing. And I was really impressed. I'm like, I'm not a Miley fan, but I give her the chance. She's doing this for free on YouTube, just for charity. That's it. You can watch it for free anytime. And I gave her that.
I don't follow that particular style of music, but I have the utmost respect for that level of performer.
Exactly. And because of that, I had learned a couple different things that, her next album that she was going to put out was more 80s female hair metal type music, kind of like that Joan Jett sound. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I might give that album a listen. And it came out earlier in December, and I was like, you know what? This is actually a pretty damn good album. So, if a hardcore metal guy can, swallow his pride and listen to Miley Cyrus and come on here and brag about how good she really is, you can take a second and say, wait a second, let me give this indie artist a piece of time because they deserve it.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my parents both enjoyed music. My mom had a really eclectic collection of 45s.
Wow.
And my dad was big into like Hank Williams, Johnny Cash. That was pretty much all that was played in the house. And to this day I still like Hank and Johnny Cash. Big Cash fan. Actually, lucky enough to have seen him in '76. I'm like third row and right in front, and there he is, the man in black himself. It's just a fantastic concert.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was, I will never forget that.
That would have been the epitome of everything I would ever want to do.
Cash, just cool. Just cool,
Yeah, Cash is one of those guys that crosses every genre, and there's nobody in the world that would ever say anything negative about him or his music. Rap to R&B to country to music, to obviously metal and everything else like that too. Everybody respects and loves that man.
Yeah, he's just cool factor 100.
Like more like 101.
Yeah.
He's so cool that he starts everybody else's coolness factor. It kind of spreads out to everybody else. But again, even with that being said, there's not many people out there like him anymore. And but yet, we tried to find somebody like that and then kind of put all of our efforts into that one person or one band or whatever else. And then if it's anything outside of that, we kind of, I'm not saying this is of everybody, but if it was outside of that, we, again, turn a blind eye and we don't even notice it. We have our blinders on,
right,
and forget some of the other good stuff that's out there.
Yeah, there are, up and coming Cash types out there, but there's just so many people doing music now, and they don't get the attention that they deserve.
Yeah,
and they're hard to find, because there's so much competition.
Well, on top of that, the ones that don't get the recognition they deserve, because of the now accessibility of internet and anyone can upload to Spotify or iTunes and shit like that.
Right.
Now it's become anyone that can afford to buy Pro Tools or whatever else can make an album, and some of that shit that's coming out there is just, it literally is shit, and they're giving other indie artists a bad name. So these people are like, well, if they're not signed, I don't want to hear them, because I listened to this other indie artist, it was crap. So why should I give anybody else a time of day? And I think that's part of the problem too. Yeah.
Also, with famous performers from back in the day, there were a lot fewer genres, so there were, little subgenres in country music and rock and roll or blues and jazz, but not like there is today. My God. I mean, ambient itself, or, instrumental rock has got so many different genres that, my God, just pick one, you probably fit in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just the case with, like, aside from like ambient music or everything else like that, and then like just look at the rock genre in general.
Right.
There's so many different, subgenre, and then a subgenre of a subgenre, and this, and it's like, it's so in depth. But then you look at like other types of music, they don't have those other types of things. I mean, there's not 50 different subgenres of R&B. There's not 50 different subgenres of rap. There's a couple, but there's not like as many as there is in rock. And
classical music is classical music all day long. There are,
country too. I mean, there's a couple subgenres of country. There's a couple subgenres of pop. But other than that, then you come over to rock. You got rock, metal, hardcore, punk, thrash, this, hair metal, this, and it's like, it gets so overwhelming. And then on top of that, you've got feuding inside of that, to where now it's like, oh, I only listen to hardcore music, or I only listen to death metal. And it's like, again, that blinders on again, to where we don't see the other good stuff that's out there.
Yeah. I remember when Nirvana hit the waves, and I'm like, my God, what is this? Because up until that point, American music was so, homogenized and dumbed down, and it's like all of a sudden somebody's punching you in the teeth going, hey, wake the hell up.
Yeah. Grunge was that, because there was always heavy metal. But heavy metal got drowned out big time by hair metal in the 80s.
Right.
And grunge was that transition from hair metal back to regular metal, in my opinion. It was that stepping stone. Because when you look at even bands like Pantera, their first album was a hair metal album. I mean, they were straight up hair metal, and then all of a sudden they kind of converted to what they were then at that time, and just this monster metal band. And I think grunge had a lot to do with that. It was a nice stepping stone for other bands to kind of say, hey, wait a second, let's go back to what we were doing before. I mean, now we're going to be overshadowed by these guys who's the new thing. Let's go ahead and recreate what we used to do.
Grunge woke everybody back up to, hey, this is what rock and roll is supposed to be, people.
Yeah. Not the sex, drugs, alcohol, and long hair of the 80s. It was more about, it's where, we lost focus of the music and got focused on the glamour of it all.
Yeah, and these guys were doing it, like bands like Mudhoney, they're doing it because they loved doing it. Same way with Nirvana, they liked what they were doing. They liked the sound. Plus it was kind of counterculture at the time. And
Mudhoney, Pixies, Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And, it was a start of a revolution, in my opinion. I mean, it really kind of, again, like you said, kind of kicked people's tail back into saying, hey, let's get back to music. We don't care what we look like. We don't care about the stage setup. We're just playing here music. Let's just do this.
Yeah, we're not a status band. We're just here to make music. If you don't like it, get the fuck out.
Yeah, we don't need pyro. We don't need big, shiny neon lights and makeup and everything else like that. Let's just get back to music.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget that grunge was more than just a phase. It was actually a stepping stone.
Yeah. It woke people up to what music really should sound like, and what it stood for, So
especially rock. I mean, rock started out as anti-establishment,
Yeah.
fuck this and fuck them and everybody else in between.
Yeah.
Look back at what Ozzy was doing in the '70s, and the Stones and everybody else that were kind of had that forefront going, and then all of a sudden hair metal showed up and they were like, let's just
Yeah.
make money and have lots of sex and drink lots of alcohol, and then
kind of lost its way. It all tasted and sounded the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this sounds just like, you go through the dials on the radio and it just, this sounds the same. This sounds the same. This sounds the same. It's like, come on, guys. We understand, that's what the market demands at the time, but, no original thought or, very formulaic. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of these bands from the '80s, specifically hair metal, that came back out and did another tour later on in the 2000s or even the 2010s, that when you went to their shows, if you were an '80s kid, it was only '80s kids there reliving their youth. You didn't see 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds and this ranges of ages. You didn't see that at these shows. But like if you go to like a Metallica concert or if you go to a Pearl Jam concert, bands that have been around for 30, 40 years, then you'll see that age range. But for some reason, the only people that loved that hair metal were the people that are around during that time.
Yeah. People that were kids when they were, when the bands were big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those bands just didn't stand the test of time. I mean,
the guys that show up with the band's name on their T-shirt to that band, don't be that guy.
the shirt that you had since you were 12 years old that barely fits you anymore. That's all stained and bleached.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
No, you go there and you wear another band's T-shirt.
Yeah.
Don't go wearing.
Yeah,
that still boggles my mind.
That's me. Don't do that.
What, the concert T-shirt?
Yeah. Don't wear the concert T-shirt of the band you're going to see.
No, you buy a T-shirt while you're there and then wear that to another band's concert. I went to like a Slipknot show last year wearing a completely different band that wasn't on, and everyone was like, "Why are you wearing that?" I'm like, "Because I'm not a freaking mark."
Yeah, exactly.
I'll buy a shirt while I'm here, but I'm not going to wear it.
Yeah, no, don't be that guy.
Or the guy that dresses up exactly like the band.
Oh my God, yeah, the posers.
My favorite, the Kiss Army.
Oh, yeah. When I was like 13, that was the band to listen to, and I'm like, yeah, I think I had a Kiss album. And then my next album that I bought was Robin Trower Live.
I never got Kiss.
Yeah.
Never understood it.
It was they were the big thing back in the day, I mean, we're talking like back in the mid 70s, early 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were
kind of the purveyors and the originators of hair metal and glam rock.
Yeah, they were kind of an extension of glam rock, and then the hair bands, and they were kind of the pioneers there for the hair bands. I think if not for Kiss, you wouldn't have had bands like Slayer or all these other hair bands.
Yeah, Kiss. As much people give them shit, especially me, they did open doors for a lot of different bands as well.
Right. They just kind of brought alternative rock to the forefront. It opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, because at that time, I mean, other than Ozzy, I mean, you had Pink Floyd and you had Zeppelin, but other than that, I mean, it was very disco-esque in the '70s, and that rock and metal was kind of like the bad boy thing to do, and then you started getting punk toward the the late '70s and stuff like that, and it kind of kicked off the '80s. But like, it again started off as anti-establishment, this and being very rebellious.
Yeah, and for a while there, American music kind of lost that You know, it became I always use the term dumbed down, but you know, there was a lot of similar sounding music, because I think that's what the large companies, well, this is marketable now, so let's make more of it.
Yep.
And then we'll force feed it to everybody. It's like, well, what about some variety, people?
And that's what they do today too. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that hasn't changed at all.
no,
And that's why I think the indie artist and the indie label is so important. It keeps other people on their toes, because now it's
right.
like, okay, fine. If if you want to give me the same album 10 different times by 10 different bands or 10 different artists, I'm going to go over here and listen to something different and original.
Right. It's like a job listing, you know. You list a job and there's 400 applicants. You know, you don't put an application in, somebody else sure as hell will.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of my take on the indie artist. You know, if they're there, they're gonna fill a spot that somebody else doesn't want to fill.
Exactly. And they're eventually going to blow up because of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's their shot. You know.
Yeah. And the bands that aren't taking advantage of that now are missing out, because, in a year from now, when we're potentially looking at starting back up festivals and concerts again, I really wonder, how much of a fan base some of these larger bands have lost, because they dropped out of existence during this time when we needed them the most. And I wonder how much of those indie bands are now going to be like selling out these small little venues and now looking at going, okay, maybe we should hook up with some of these bigger bands or something like that, because we can't do this anymore. And I'm really curious to see what kind of changing of the tides is going to happen here.
I think you're going to see a lot of fresh faces come out of this, just because there's so many people either getting back into it or getting into it a bit heavier, and trying to push and promote themselves a little bit more, because people are hungry for it, man.
They really, really are. I know I am. Especially, and I've said this before, but especially as somebody that suffers from bipolar disorder and anxiety and stuff like that, I use music as an outlet sometimes.
Yeah.
Because meds don't always work, and this or that, and I have my bad days, but music always brings me out of it. And especially if there's a good song that I know I can listen to and brings me out of it. But after a while, listening to that same song or that same playlist over and over and over again, my mind is kind of like, I can't do this anymore. It's not working for me. And this year, the indie band has been there because it's all new music, all stuff I've never heard before, and it's
you need to find a new stimulus.
Exactly, and I found it with the indie band, and it was fantastic. There's been so much good stuff out there this year that it's mind-boggling that these people have never gotten the recognition they deserve. Yeah,
that's what I always tell people. I said, turn off your radio and go online and just look for different music. There's so much better music out there. I just give it a chance.
I mean, find a good indie label and latch on to it, or again, just look up indie artists on Spotify or Amazon or whatever, and you'll find it, and you'll be pleasantly surprised that some of these bands are better than the bigger bands.
Yeah, they've got more original sounding material. Some of them you can hear some pretty heavy influences from some other bands, but a lot of that, I wonder if that's because they've collaborated on different bands that, like, I know Nashville's got a lot of really good indie artists. Dixie Narcos comes to mind. I like their sound. Give them a listen. So how much of that is people in the business that know each other, that do studio work for each other,
Exactly, yeah.
But
and then also I'm finding too, a lot of these indie artists used to play guitar or sing or for some of these bigger bands, and now are like, you know what, I'm gonna go do my own thing because I get sick and tired of the corporate life. I'm gonna do it my way now, and now it's like, but now they're getting lost in the shuffle, even though they have the name recognition behind them, and now they're just kind of lost.
Yeah, that's too bad. And you know, you hope they make it.
Yeah.
Or like me, I just, like I told somebody recently, I said, I will do this even if I'm not making anything at it. You know, I enjoy it, and it's therapeutic. You know, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah, music in general, whether you're playing it or listening to it, like we both just said, 100% therapeutic.
Yeah,
you know, it really is.
And I'm the type of guy that I've got to be learning something all the time. You know, I just, I was in, after I got married again, I went back to school for nursing, studied anatomy and physiology. I gobbled that stuff up, man. I couldn't get enough of it. I studied genetics even. And that after doing all the computer stuff. So I'm like this knowledge sucking machine. I can't get enough of it, you know. I always got to be learning something. It's crazy.
And that's the way we should be. I mean, doesn't matter if you're 12 or 60.
Yeah.
You know, you always need to be learning something new. If you're not learning something new every day, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I see so many people, you know, they get out of high school and they go to college and they get their degree and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, they work at that task, that special task for the rest of their lives, never going above and beyond what they are already.
Yeah.
I don't understand that mentality.
I don't either. To be honest with you, I don't.
It's okay. I mean, that's how we get doctors and lawyers. But, you know, to each their own.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Not wrong at all. Bryon, man, you are, with everything that you've had to deal with in your life and, you know, the motivations that you have, I want to say you're a very inspiring person. And I appreciate everything you do. You know, the music is amazing, you know, especially for somebody who doesn't listen to that type of music, to actually be able to sit down and get lost for 2 or 3 hours in your music is amazing. So, you know, I appreciate it. I mean, this weekend I was cleaning and, you know, doing some editing and doing other things, having your music on in the background. It was just, it's exactly what it was supposed to do, and it did it. And I hope other people discover you again.
Music to listen to while in an elevator.
No, not that. Anything but that. No, it's better than elevator music. No, again, that was just a bad reference to kind of get other people to understand what I was going for.
I love it.
No, it's better than elevator music. But no, in all seriousness, it's really good. It's different. It's something that you can just kind of listen to in the background and really kind of, it does its purpose. It does serve its purpose. I was able to focus and I was able to take my mind off of everything and really put it into the work that I was doing. And, you know, it really kind of touched me in a way that I didn't expect it to do. So, you know, honestly, from my heart to yours, thank you very much, man. It's awesome music.
Welcome. Yeah, glad you enjoy it.
Absolutely. And the link to all of his stuff in Spotify is, again, tagged in this video and the podcast. Please click it down below. His Instagram is down there as well, and also his website. So if you guys need anything else from him, please feel free to reach out. But, you know, please take a listen to him on Spotify. You will not regret it.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, no problem. Bryon, again, you are an inspiration to a lot of us, and I really do want to say thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Derek.
No problem. You have a great rest of your day now.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, and that's our Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks again to Bryon. He's an awesome guy. Again, check out all the links for his stuff in the video and the podcast down below. But until tomorrow, please stay happy, stay healthy, and as always, stay heavy. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.